Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Odd One Out. You might hear our little daughter. She's got some playtime going on right now. So if you happen to see Ashley step off camera, it's her holding our daughter, because our daughter is like, hold me, mama. So last night we had part one of our reaction to Donald Trump's joint session, whatever, address to joint Congress. And tonight we thought we'd continue with that. So without any further ado, without any need to drag it on, would you like to jump in with our next line of notes?
Yes. So where we left off was he had said that he had made it the official policy of our country that there are only two genders. And then he kind of jumped into some transgender things. So I knew we would probably have a lot to say. So that's kind of where we cut it off last time. So he says that. He then goes to introduce a girl who was there. Her name was Peyton McNabb. And let me preface by saying I don't want to speak on anyone's experience, but what her story is that she was on her high school volleyball team. There was a transgender woman on the other team who spiked the ball, and Peyton passed out and now I guess has some deficits and is partially paralyzed. That is her story. And again, I'm not going to speak on what did or didn't happen to this girl. What I will say is when I went to look into this story, the only places that I could find it reported on at all were all conservative outlets. So, is there more to the story? Is it being spun to fit this transgender agenda that they're trying to push? I don't know, but I could only find it reported on Fox News, a group, I can't even remember their name now, but some group that's for conservative women. I couldn't find it on any other reputable news sources.
Not even like a neutral one, right? Like Reuters, nothing like that?
No.
Okay.
So that's all I'll really say about that, but he introduced her. He then goes to tell a story about a cycling race that allegedly happened where a transgender woman beat all the other women by 5 hours. I couldn't find any record of anyone beating anyone in just a cycling race by 5 hours. I will say I saw someone talking today and they said the same thing. They couldn't find this happening anywhere, but she had found a story where she thought maybe this is where he got this from. There was some competition. She said it's like a cycling and backpacking thing that it takes like 8 days to do the race or something. Like it's some really long race, and it's co-ed. And I think a trans person did break some record in this race by 5 hours, but if you look at how long the race is, 5 hours isn't like as much as it would seem for like a regular...
Over 8 days.
Right. And like I said, it was a co-ed race.
Hollywood couldn't write it.
And that's just this person speculating that maybe that's where he got that story from. And like I said, I couldn't find just a cycling competition for women and it's where a transgender woman won by 5 hours. That has not been reported happening anywhere.
Yeah.
So that he touched on transgender issues a little bit there. He then goes on, like I pointed out yesterday, he said that the price of eggs currently is Biden's fault. He then goes on to talk about Doge, where he announces and says that Elon is the head of Doge.
Yeah.
But there's been some people not wanting him to say that Elon is the head of like some people have been trying to say like, oh no, Elon's not the head of Doge, but Trump
Because he legally
admitted
can't.
it.
Because
Right.
he legally can't be.
But Trump in his speech introduced Elon as the head of Doge.
I did have a reaction to the trans stuff. So
Oh,
we
yeah,
gotta,
sorry.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. We got to backpedal to that
Yeah.
real quick. So, and by the way, this is the same guy that claimed that Iman, I'm going to butcher her name, Imane Khalif, the boxer, the Algerian boxer from the Olympics, that he said that, he used to be a great boxer, had a brilliant record, a great male boxer. Talked about him being her being a him and being a fantastic male boxer prior to Amon's transition and her surgeries. Fun fact: none of that ever happened. She has no male boxing record. Matter of fact, she was in the 2020 boxing Olympics
As a woman.
as a woman, and the only source claiming that she's a man is a Russian boxing federation. Who, by the way, Aman was pitted up against Russia's #1 undefeated fighter, and so they had an interest to protect. So there's no other foundation out there. There's nothing. There's no birth records. In fact, she was born a female and assigned female at birth. So it's like, not only did he get it wrong, but he just like literally just made crap up and said, he was a great male boxer, and it's all lies. It's always lies. He's never punished for it.
Well, because I think what people need to remember is that he, and not just him, his party too, they needed to find someone to make the enemy, and they have now decided that transgender people are causing all of the issues. So they had to find these stories to try and twist to fit their agenda, to make people think that transgender people are the enemy, that they're the problem.
Yeah, that's what he did, and I'm not going to go off on this, but no, you make a fantastic point. It's what they just did with Zelensky. They needed another enemy, so Zelensky. They're always making boogeymen. It's trans people. Like, literally, half of that speech was immigration, and almost half of it was trans people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just, and you know what? Only 20% of Democrats actually support trans people in sports. So it's not like it's actually this widespread democratic issue where we're all standing on the lines and fighting and dying on the hill. Matter of fact, if I'm honest with you, I am completely for trans rights in every single facet that you can possibly think of. However, in sports, I do agree that there are advantages, and so I do think that there needs to be something to be done about that. So I mean, there still is plenty of logic and reasoning within only 20% of Democrats actually being for. And that's not 20% of people, that's 20% of Democrats. 80% of Democrats oppose it. So it's not actually like this insane issue. And by the way, there's less than 10 NCAA athletes out of 530,000 that are trans. And so, we have all these issues going on. We have rising grocery prices, like she just mentioned, eggs, that got somehow blamed on Biden. And literally everybody was like, and walked on out. It's just, it's always a boogeyman, it's always lies.
I don't want to get off on it because we have a lot to get to, so I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. I do think, I understand what you're saying as far as the sports, but if we are supporters of transgender people, I think that we need to find a way for them to be in sports.
Yeah.
And so,
whether that's,
I don't think just creating this issue of them in sports and trying to kick them out of sports, I don't support that, and I don't think that's
that's not the end all be all. We can find other ways to allow them to participate.
And the bottom line is transgender people are not causing the problems of this country.
That's right.
That's what they want you to believe.
That's right.
The transgender people are not causing your grocery prices to rise.
Nope. They're just literally trying to exist.
Causing your housing to be unaffordable. Transgender people are not any issue here. They have just tried to make it an issue to create an enemy.
Yep.
Basically.
I agree.
So he then went on to he lists all these random numbers of funds that they apparently found going here and there. One of which he said was that they found $8 million for making mice transgender.
No way he lied.
But that's not what he meant.
You know, I think it's what he meant. It's just he just did not understand what he was looking at. Go ahead and tell
Well,
him.
that's what I mean. Like, he doesn't, what he meant was transgenic mice, which is, I won't pretend to be an expert on, but they use it for research. Like, it can be used for a technique that can be used for, like, medical research and things like that.
It allows the mice to be able to be exposed to pathogens and react in the same way a human would, and so they can see how they would react based on a human would and translate that to humans.
So, transgenic mice, it has nothing to do with transgender whatsoever. But he said that there was $8 million going towards making mice transgender.
Just very quickly, this is the exact same thing that happened whenever he thought that we were sending first $50 million, then $100 million to Gaza, and then $100 million to Hamas. It always changed what he said, because we were sending 50 billion. We were, was it 50 million? Yeah, 50 million. We were sending not 50 million, nowhere near that, but we were sending money to and condoms, money to buy condoms for Gaza, Mozambique. It's the same thing where you have somebody who is not really able to understand what they're looking at and are trying to... This is the Dunning-Kruger administration. That's what it is. Go ahead.
He then goes into Social Security fraud. He claims... I'll just read a couple of them. He claims that there are 3.9 million people aged 130 to 139 receiving Social Security, 3.5 million people ages 140 to 149 receiving Social Security, which I looked into, and I even found an article from Fox News even stating this. This has been debunked, and he knows this, and he's still saying it. Now, did they find some incorrect payments that were going out? Yes.
Less than 1%.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was about to say. So these numbers that he's saying don't add up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been debunked, but he continues to spread the lie.
Just today, the director of the Social Security Administration said, it's, and obviously not verbatim, he said, it's rather, this is the most unique administration that he's ever had to work with, and that it's difficult, it's presented as challenges, and that he said that the DOJ personnel were inexperienced, and we're still learning on the job, and so we're prone to make mistakes. That is the director of the Social Security Administration. So we've been trying to tell you, you've got directors trying to tell you, there you have it.
So I really just pointed that out just to show that, like, he knows that has been debunked, and he continues to spread his lies.
Correct.
He then goes on, which this is very interesting. He goes on to say that the federal bureaucracy has grown, and any federal bureaucrat who resists the changes that he's implementing will be removed from office immediately. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. Which, first of all, is obviously hypocrisy, because he has Elon Musk running things and he was not elected. But I want to point out, we'll get into this more later. I said a few episodes ago that I've started reading Project 2025. And I had to write this down, and I have to point out, because this is exact language from Project 2025. One of their big messages in Project 2025 is trying to make the left out to be the enemy, and it basically says that the left is, and that's exactly what it says, that the left is made of federal bureaucrats that are running the country, basically.
Every accusation is a confession.
And so it's interesting that he's using exact verbiage from Project 2025. But then it's also interesting that they say this, he says this, and then they say this in Project 2025, but then we have Elon Musk running things in our government when he was not elected. So it's just hypocrisy as well.
I don't know anything about Project 2025. I don't know who was behind it. Don't you remember that?
And yeah, we're gonna do. we'll have lots of episodes on that. He knew and he knows.
He always does.
So yeah, I just needed to point that out. He talks about the budget bill, that he's gonna give no taxes on tips or overtime, which, like we said a few episodes ago in our episode about the budget bill, that's not in the budget bill. It's not written out right now that you're not gonna be taxed on your tips or overtime. So he's promising this. There's no plan for it in the budget at this time. So, wanted to point that out.
He is cutting Medicaid, though.
Well, that's it, yes, because that,
So within the framework.
Yes.
And it's not possible to execute
Right.
that level of cutting without cutting
but
Medicaid.
the tips and the overtime, I mean, that's not, I don't know where that's coming in.
Yeah.
But he's saying it as if it's a done deal. So that's why I just wanted to point that out. He made little comments about his tariffs and the economy, and says that it's going to be a little adjustment. There will be a little disturbance, which it's like
A little disturbance.
It's like, well, maybe a little disturbance to you, but to us regular people trying to live our lives, it's not
It's
a
a
little
disruption.
disturbance. Yeah. Do you want me to hold you or not? So I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
And explain to me how there's supposed to be just a little bit of disturbance whenever he said that tariffs are the most beautiful word in the dictionary. That tariffs will make us, whenever people would ask him so many times, hey, Mr. President, economists have analyzed these tariff proposals and have analyzed that there's going to be $2,000 plus in added cost every year to the average family. What's your take on that? Tariffs will not cost the average American anything. They will only bring greatness. And that's literally, that's an actual quote. Tariffs are greatness. They will bring greatness. That's what he said. So, it's really interesting. It doesn't work both ways. It's either just makes us rich, consumers are not taxed, or there's going to be a little bit of a disruption. And then he talks about the farmers. Did you happen to write a note about the farmers? If you didn't, then I've got
No,
that.
I didn't.
Okay.
I don't think.
Can anybody out there, please leave a comment, anything. Can anybody please explain to me what he was trying to talk about with farmers? It was the most schizophrenic, non-coherent, I'm just being honest, completely out there, really gave Biden's worst moments a run for his money, and that's a fact. He gets up there and says, tariffs are going to be great, the farmers are going to do well, have fun, there will be a little disruption. It was so great the first administration, my first term, they had to be bailed out for $28 billion because his trade wars with China absolutely wrecked farmers. And that was with tariffs that were nowhere near 20%, which is what they currently are in China. So, and he keeps on pulling out of tariff deals. Just today, he pulled out of the Canada-Mexico tariffs temporarily. Keeps on pushing them back 1 month at a time. I don't even know what's going on with that either. It's April 2nd, he'll do it because he's suspicious or, superstitious about April 1st. So, tariffs are supposed to be so great, like he's told us over and over and over. Why are we dancing like this? Why are we playing like this? Why are we saying there's going to be a little bit of a disruption? The farmers are going to get crushed, and there's going to be a lot more that get crushed too.
Yeah, so he then goes back to talking about the immigrants, undocumented immigrants. Again, says the border was open. The border has not been open.
And you're writing this sequentially, meaning he said that multiple times.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay. He said Biden's name 15 times, by the way. Not even counting the times that he was talking about him without saying his name.
He then talks about Laken Riley, who was on a run and was killed by an undocumented immigrant.
Could have been literally anybody by the numbers.
Which, let me first just say, what happened to her is horrible and it's not okay.
Correct.
And I I think all I want to say right now is that, yeah, like you just said, lots of women in our country are killed by men every day. And I'm just trying to be like sensitive, because obviously what happened to her is not okay. It's not an immigrant issue. It's an issue of violence against women. And I'm
By
actually,
men.
yes.
And if you don't like that at home, just go pull up the stats.
Well, and I'm actually working on a women's issue episode right now, and I will talk about statistics
Make sure you tune
of
in.
that. Because, yes, it's not okay. We should be able to go for runs and not get killed.
I feel like you used to, stereotypically. You don't, I mean, it's, nowadays, that's a common thing.
But they've twisted this. I don't want to say too much because it's
a
you know, she
tragedy.
died, and I don't want it to seem like I'm being insensitive, because I'm not. I'm just trying to say that they've twisted this issue and politicized it to make people afraid of immigrants, when really the issue is men being violent towards women,
Yeah.
not immigrant men. Any men.
On a per capita basis, an illegal immigrant, and I'm not just talking about because they're a smaller number of the population, they are far less likely to commit crimes, especially violent crimes. The statistics really show this. And a main thought of the reason is because the risks for them are so much higher. If they get arrested, then they will get deported. And so it's, you know, it's a completely overblown issue, just like trans issues. And it's all just boogeymen, because here, I'll be fair with you. Liberals are very emotional. They're driven by not just empathy, which is in the good way, but also just, you know, sadness, sometimes some over sadness. And I mean, liberals are fueled by emotions. Guess who else is fueled by emotions? Conservatives. Anger and fear are what drive a conservative. And so don't sit there and think that you're not having your emotions stirred. You're literally being fired up. Do you want to go ahead and wrap this up for tonight? We got plenty more content. And you know what? Let's finish with some final thoughts that you might have, and then some good news if you have any.
Okay. I mean, I don't have too much more.
We can go off on that cancer thing the next video for sure.
Okay. The next part is him talking about. He talks about how he wants to respect police officers.
Oh man, see, no, we're gonna have a good episode this next one. You just
Okay,
wait
so
for
we're
it.
gonna have to have a part 3.
Yes, absolutely. And there will be more mixed in. This is a 3-day deal. We'll have plenty of news mixed in. Oh, did she fall? On that note, we're gonna call it a night. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you so much, and we will be seeing y'all probably tomorrow.